Everybody, Pat Huntoon from Technique Junkies here, and today I'm going to finish up the series on the Niji watercolors, shimmering watercolors. They're actually quite beautiful. They're pearlescent. They're made by Niji, and they are, this whole thing is only $7.95. It's really inexpensive, and you get 24 colors, so it's a nice little kit to have. And this is the second part of a two-part video. If you have not seen the first part, I suggest you go back and just watch it. It's very fast and very quick. So this is the second part, and in this video we have two tutorials for you, two very fast ones. The first one I'm going to do is on black paper. Today we're going to be using 771 paint rings. Okay, so we're going to do these rings, and we're heat embossing it using Versamark ink pad, or you could use a black craft ink and just some plain old fine detail black. I'm running low on that. Okay, so here's the heat emboss piece. It's all embossed. It's you can see the shininess of the embossing there. I didn't want you to have to sit through me embossing piece of paper. So it's been stamped and embossed, and now I have these beautiful rings. I have a aqua painter that is full of water, and I'm going to keep a paper towel on hand next to me and open up my watercolors, okay? And I'm going to start painting this piece. And what I'm going to do is I really want you to see what these look like on black, because these are, again, very versatile. So I'm just going to be dipping my paintbrush into each color that I want to use, and I will be just creating a slurry of color. Okay, so I'm going to start with the blue, and I'm just going to, you see how I just squeeze some water in there, and then I'm just going to slurry that around. Now, if you saw the first video, you know I used these for that first video, and you can see they've dried nicely. There's no mold on top of them. They're in really good shape still. Again, I kind of leave mine open and open to the air while they're drying, and then when they're dry, that's when I close it. So I have a nice little thick slurry of liquid. If you want more color and you want them to be more opaque, just keep stirring until it gets quite thick like that. If you want them to be more translucent, you use more water and less watercolor. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start putting these right in the center of these. And by embossing this, it kind of keeps things at bay. It holds the color in. I'm going to do the overlap there. So I'm going to let that dry for a second. And in between colors, well, I'm going to do a couple more colors of this, and then I'll change colors. And then in between colors, I'm going to be wiping my brush off. So I'm going to get that nice and thick on there, okay, because I really want that color to show through. I'm going to let that dry for a second. And in between, I'm just, I don't know if you see, I'm squeezing the color out onto my paper towel until my brush runs clear. And then I'm going to go to my next color. I'm going to do this in blues and greens, I think. I'm just creating my slurry still. And at this point, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to speed this video up while I'm adding color to these, and I'll be back in a second. Point out one more thing before we go on to the next tutorial, because this is almost finished, but you can really see how shimmery this is already. If you get a little bit off the edge, like I did here, I don't know if you can see these, a little bit messy over here, there, you can clean your brush off, get it nice and clean, make sure there's no color on it, nice and clean, and then just use a little bit of water and see if you can erase it a little bit. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to erase and dab and erase. All I'm doing is reactivating that paint and then just lifting it off and dab just to neaten it up. I mean, it's not quite so important on something called paint rings because it's supposed to be a little messy. But if you're doing something that's very exact and you go outside the lines, it's really not a big deal because you can just wipe it off. So that is this tutorial, and you can see how shimmery and pretty they are on black, and they layer nicely. And I will show you the finished card at the end of the tutorial. So onward to the last part of this tutorial, the very last thing I'm going to show you with these paints. I hope you've enjoyed this particular technique, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we're going to be using the Niji Pearlescent Watercolors again to be creating a band of color that we're going to put a stamp into, and we're going to be using this cute little stamp called Something Will Grow, SG716, Something Will Grow, and it says something will grow from all you are going through, and it will be you. Now, another reason to love a Misty is that I can place this in here, and even though it's backwards, I can see that I need to create at least 1 3/4 inch band of color in order to get the whole stamp in there, in that section. So I need to create a 1 3/4 inch area on my cardstock. So what I did was I'm actually going to work right on this card in my Misty. I'm going to be taking my painter's tape, and I'm going to peel this off. Now, because we're using regular paper, and this is dollar store tape, it's a little stickier than it should be. So I'm just going to rub this against my pants to try to take some of the stickiness off. And what that did, other than messing up the paint, is it actually took some fibers off my pants, which is great. And I can use it there. So what I'm going to do is create a 2 inch or 1 3/4 inch space here. And I'm going to use the numbers down here to help me create that space and to get it evenly on here. So I'm using that line up there, that grid line there, and going straight down to that grid line. Now I'm using a piece of paper that's slightly bigger than what I need, just slightly bigger in case I need to cut it down, or I don't have it even, or it wasn't sitting in here evenly. All of those things are possible with me. You never know. I'm going to take another piece of tape, and 1 3/4 inches is what I need, right? So I'm a little more than 3/4 here. So 1 3/4 would be at the 6 mark. So I'm going to go just a tiny, tiny bit bigger than that. So I'm going to go to this mark and go straight up. Nice and straight up. Okay, so because I want this to be perfect, I can use a ruler and make sure that I'm on that line right there, if you can see it, and there. So that's perfect. So I just use my ruler to measure different parts of this to make sure I have nice even lines this way. It doesn't really matter if it's even on the cardstock, but this has to be an even line. Now I'm just going to burnish down this edge, even though it's going to stick a little bit more there. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to not have the water go underneath that. So I have my water brush. I think we're going to use some brighter colors. These pearlescent watercolors are kind of in jewel tones. So if you work with jewel tone things, all the better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my bottom color. You see I got a little yellow on there, so we're going to cover that right up. Bottom color. And you notice I am not going to make this super dark. I have made these super dark, and they're cute, but this particular stamp has words on it, so I don't necessarily want it super dark. I just want a nice light little, believe me, it'll be much darker than you think it is. So I'm going to add pink here. And if you're doing this and you have transition and you don't like the way your transition is, that's not so bad. But if you don't like the way, just use your finger to blend it a little bit. And I think I will use pink, and I think I'm going to use, believe it or not, I'm going to use some orange at the top. The pink and the orange will go together really nicely. Just putting some water in there, blending it out, and getting the orange in there. If I want to go back over any of this, I still use some of the color that's there and just go back over it. Again, I'm going very, very finely here. This is not a dark color. I have done this with dark colors. I did it with dark colors. I want to be able to see the stamp a little bit better this time out, so I'm doing it this way. Now, I'm going to dry this right in the MISTI. You are drying this on plastic, so make sure that you move your dryer around. You don't want to hold it in one spot any longer than you should. So, this is the stamp I want to use, and we're going to go back and use the trick with this, with our piece of paper here. I'm going to stick this right in the corner. I'm going to tack this down, actually, and place this over the top. Okay, so placing this over the top allows me to see where the stamp is positioned. Then I'm going to take a look at this, and you can see with the grid lines, I think you can see with the grid lines that the words are not even on here. The words will be all sideways if I do it like that. So I'm going to be using just a black StazOn ink on this one. StazOn might be a little dry. I might have to do this twice, so I'm just going to ink that up. Sorry about that. Go over this. So I didn't move the plastic piece, but that's where it's going to go, which is a perfect spot. Ink up the stamp again. And give it a good inking. Oh, that's nice. Okay, I think that's perfect. Okay, so that's perfectly stamped. Now we're going to very, very carefully remove this. A band of pearlescent color with a stamp over the top. Isn't that just pastel-y and pretty? Again, you can make this nice and dark if you want, or you can just leave it the way it is. You can always color over this, and I always take a marker or some other coloring tool and just color that. And that's it. That is done and done. And you just mat that and you have a piece. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more rubber stamp tutorials. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.